Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet. We're back at it with another amazing podcast. This podcast got delayed. We were supposed to do it a few days ago, but with weather and a few other things, we had to end up deciding to reschedule. And I'm really glad that we did because we got Katie Brooke. How's it going today?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I was always been kind of trying to figure out when to have you back on because I know when we had you on for the pancreatic cancer fundraiser, it was one of those deals where I was like, okay, these are cool, but that's like a 10, 15, sometimes 20-minute deal.
Yeah.
And it's so rushed that we don't really get a chance to talk.
Yes, it's always great to really get to the bottom of things and yeah, not have a time limit.
Yeah, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
because
So, what's that?
especially when it comes to me, because I love talking.
Fair, very fair. So you're from Australia. You're in New South Wales, right?
Yes. Yeah, Northern New
Um,
South.
Northern. I I don't know. I'm sitting here like it's been so long since I've had people from Australia on the podcast. Like during when it was in the pandemic, this time difference was easy to pull off because it's like, okay, whenever you're free, just let me know. And now, like for the last 2 years, it's like, okay, I can do it like on a Friday or a Saturday or like whatever it is. So all that information that I was able to retain has just kind of gone, gone by the
Time
wayside.
fun.
Yeah.
Time zones are very challenging.
Yeah, for sure. So you're born and raised in North New
Yeah.
South Wales?
Yeah, born and raised here. My parents have a property. We literally back onto their boundary fence now, which is really nice with our own kind of little homestead, little farm kind of situation. But it's really nice. I grew up there and then I left for the majority of my 20s, which is such a great thing to do, I think. Leave, especially when you grow up in a small town, make sure you get away, go and make as many mistakes as you can, really, stuff up a lot.
Yeah.
About where you want to be towards the end of your 20s, which is exactly what happened to me. I kind of moved around. I went out to our country music capital, Tamworth. I lived out there for a while, did a lot of touring. And yeah, as I said, made a lot of mistakes and then decided, I really would love to come back to the farm. I love it so much. At the time, I thought, maybe that's failing. Maybe it's bad to move back home. I just kind of associated that with, it means I haven't really done much, but I had
Mhm.
done so much. And there was just not a lot more for me to do. I didn't feel like I was where I belonged. I feel like coming back to the land is where I belong. And I absolutely love it here now. And I was right because I write my best songs here. Everything kind of flows a lot easier, I think, when you're in your happy space, your happy
Mhm.
place.
I
So yeah.
That's really cool. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently because I've told a lot of people, especially a lot of friends that when I was growing up in the 90s, I grew up in South Side of Chicago, and as I got older, started to realize like, man, I'm not happy here.
Mm.
I need to do something different. And I moved away, and I've been away since 2009 technically, and I've been so happy, but now I'm starting to realize like, okay, maybe I need to start heading closer back to where I grew up because yes, now I have all these connections
Mm.
and all these friends, but we don't get together nearly as much as like I would if I had my friends back in
Yeah.
Illinois, where it's like we hang out or we would hang out all the time because I hang out with a bunch of musicians and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. If they're not playing gigs, they don't really want to do anything. So maybe we get to hang out like twice a year,
Yeah.
if then. So it's one of those things where it's like it doesn't really matter where I am as long as we're willing to travel. Like it doesn't matter. So
Exactly. And you're so right with community too. I think we crave that and we need that. And it's such an important part of our overall well-being and success in life goes back to our tribe, our communities, having those friends, having those companions that you can lean on.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So how long have you been back home now at this point?
Well, it's been, I think, 2017, I moved home. And then I started releasing music in 2018. I just kind of felt like, wow, nothing's holding me back now. Everything just So it was funny living in the country music capital. You would think that everything was happening for me out there, but I just felt so held back because I wasn't where I belong. And when I came home, all of a sudden everything's happening. And I've now since put out a debut album. So I've got a debut EP, debut album, and a bunch of singles. And yeah, it just all feels like it's aligning. And I'm now 33. So it kind of, I always have that, like, I should have made it work in my 20s. I should have worked harder and I should have really started my career happening then, because I was a bit like, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Whereas I got to kind of 30 and I went, I really need to hit the ground running. Like, I don't want to waste any more time.
Mm.
But I think with country music, it's great. Country music, you can have that longevity in your career because country people don't really care if you're 25 or 35 or 45. They just kind of want music. So, yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And I mean, there's definitely an argument that could be made that in your 20s, living out in Tamworth, you were getting that life experience to write all these killer songs in your 30s now. And it's like, I think that's kind of the key that everybody misses nowadays is they just jump right into songwriting without having, not saying without having experienced anything, but thinking that that grade school breakup or the high school sweetheart that left them or whatever it was, like they see that kind of Taylor Swift
Yes.
equation kind of work for them. And it's like, oh, I can just write songs about breakups. It's like, no, there's more to things than that. And get out and experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what your 20s are for. That's why I say make as many mistakes as you can, because that is, you know, the growth comes from that. Unfortunately, our best growth comes from the really tough stuff. And yeah, it's a really small window. If you think that you've got to make it by 25 and have all these awards and start packing stadiums, then I don't know if I really want to hear someone's songs. You know,
Right.
it's a small they're writing about. So you're so right. You do the living, you experience it. And I did, like, I experienced heartbreaks. I would, you know, did a couple of wrong relationships and thought, why was I in that relationship? Why did I move to that house? I didn't enjoy that. You know, it was all this kind of stuff. And now, you know, I'm writing for my next album and I'm still writing about that time in my life because I have so much that I experienced. And there's so many songs that I can just write from that decade. And I think I'll always write about it, really. But yeah, and I think that's why a lot of artists start to get better by the time that they're 30 as well. I've noticed that. Or there becomes like this depth to their music that they didn't have before. And I think even Taylor Swift is the same because she's about my age now. You could see how her songs grew and they've now got this nice depth to them.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Would you say it's fair to say that when you were living out in Tamworth, you were kind of chasing those, I don't want to call them vanity metrics, but that's like the best way I can think of it, where it's like you were trying to chase where you think you should be by the time you're 25, 26, 27. And then once you returned home, it was like, okay, no, none of that matters. I'm going to just do what I love. And that's write good music.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think we always get caught up in that. But I was a bit of a, I wouldn't say lazy artist, but so I grew up in my teens, primary school, high school, and my teenage years. I was performing. My parents were taking me to talent quests every weekend. I got every lead role at school. I'd be, you know, front and center in the church choir, asked to open assembly. You know, can you sing a song to open assembly today? Can you, you know, I was always the singer and always told that I was going to be the singer and I was talented and I was really lifted. I had a lot of confidence boosting in my teens to the point where, and I had been saying since I was in primary school, I'm going to be a country music singer. I'm going to be a country music singer. And then I kind of got to my 20s and then just was like, yeah, well, it's inevitable. I'm going to be a country music singer. But I didn't realize the work ethic I would still have to put into it. And that's kind of where my 20s, I cruised along a little bit because I just always thought that it was going to happen. And I relaxed because I was like, yeah, it'll happen. And then I think as I got towards the end of my 20s, I was like, oh, it's not happening. And I really learned about work ethic. And not that I was like, I'm not a lazy person, but I think I underestimated how much we actually do have to put into it. And not only that, but the industry was changing. So I had to relearn, okay, we're not in the 90s anymore. We're not pressing CDs and touring all the time. I'm having to learn about social media. I'm having to learn about all these streaming platforms. And I'm an old fashioned kind of country girl. How am I going to wrap my head around this? So yeah, it's been such a journey. And, as you say about all the vanity, what are we chasing? Do we want that? And of course we do. But yeah, I'm settling into this idea of, I just want to create this wholesome career
Mm-hmm.
that's the lifestyle I want. I think when we want to be successful, we have to have our own definition of success,
Yep.
because everyone kind of goes, okay, success, packing out stadiums, billions of streams, all this kind of trophies lining the walls. But, if you're the type of person who can handle that and you want that, then that's fine. I'm probably the type of person, I don't know how I'd actually keep up with that. I wouldn't be, living in my little homestead, having enough time to write these songs and go for a ride on the horse as well, and be the country girl that I am and write the songs from the place where I am. So yeah, I've kind of redefined what success means to me. And I think that's really powerful, because then you feel like you're on top of it all the time. Like, success to me now is, I'm looking out in the audience and they're singing my songs back to me, and they're little songs that I wrote in my lounge room. It's just crazy. So yeah, that's been the journey for me the last couple of years.
Nice. That's really cool. It seems like you've kind of combined almost two trains of thoughts, which is really amazing. Where, yes, you have to put in that work, you have to have a work ethic to get to where you want to go, but also don't lose that ability to relax and just, you know, when it comes, it'll come, as long as you're putting in that work. Yeah, as long as you've got the work ethic and you're not just, because, when we're kind of younger, we fall into this pattern of, oh, I'm young, it's just going to happen, like you had mentioned. I don't have to do it, or I don't have to do very little. It's just going to come to me. And then as you get older, it's like, no, you realize
Yeah.
you got to work. But still think we need to keep that relaxation, because I think people get so hyper fixated on, oh, I got to work myself into the ground, or otherwise I'm not going to be successful. And in redefining what success is I think is the key. And I think you found it. So,
Yeah. And then, it's a way for us to feel so successful in what we're doing. And that just carries on into better music. We want to be better. But yeah, I'm seeing that in young artists these days, because Australian country music is having such a boom. There are
mhm.
so many young artists coming through that I've never seen before. And you see them on every lineup, then, they're on social media here, there, and everywhere, and just kind of throwing everything into it. And I just think, whoa, you're 19, you're 20, you're 21, like that's a lot. So the work ethic is so great, but yeah, I think we've got to do the living as well. I think we've got to go and veer off and have our heartbreaks and experience life if we want to write the best songs.
Yep, 100% agree. And I do love the fact that um, Australian country music is, I wouldn't classify it as a resurgent, because I think it's always kind of been there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's really you're really starting to see the next wave. Like I'm sure Keith Urban probably isn't the name that everybody likes to hear, but that's the first, right? Was it Keith Urban? No, I don't know.
Yeah, he's a super popular Aussie, New
Okay.
Zealand.
I'm sitting there in my head, I'm like, wait a minute, is it Keith Urban? I can't think now. It's
All right, you're correct.
okay. But now you're starting to see that second wave. And even I don't know if you've seen it on Instagram, but I'm preparing to go to the CMA Fest next week. And some of the Australian artists that are on there, it's like, okay,
Thank you.
it's
Yeah.
incredible.
So well. It is. I've never seen it in such a healthy way. It's really, really amazing. And what I really love to see at the moment is traditional country is back. The 90s is kind of recirculating. You're getting that Alan Jackson feel again, which I think is kind of important. I think I love all country. I'm not like I only love pop country. I only love bluegrass-esque, folky, alternate country. I love all, and I listen to all country. But I really love to hear some more traditional, like Zach Top. I love
Mhm.
him. I love to hear those guys coming back and just refreshing that nostalgic. Randall King, he's one of my favorites, actually.
Really good. Really
Yeah.
good. It's funny you brought up 90s country music. So when everybody says 90s country music to me, I just assume they're talking about the Dixie Chicks because
Oh,
when I was growing up in the 90s, that's the only country I knew because my aunt liked to listen to the Dixie Chicks, and when they said country music, that's what I thought of. Um,
yes. They were
and
huge.
it just I wasn't a big fan of them, so it kind of gave me a sour taste of what country music was. And then I started listening as I started doing this podcast more and having more country musicians. And I went to my buddy's place. He had me on his podcast. And he was like, here, I want you to listen to like these 3 songs from the Texas country charts.
Mm.
And I started to connect the dots. It's like, oh, not because there was a couple of songs on there that were like very 90s influenced. And I was like, oh, there's a lot more to this than the Dixie Chicks. So
Yeah, it's so huge. And I forgot about the Dixie Chicks actually, because I was like your Tim McGraw, Faith Hill
yeah,
kind of girl. Yeah.
fair enough. Fair enough. So where are you kind of at right now with your music? I know you just released a new single back in April. Has it been that
Yeah,
long yet?
it has. It has been that long. So yeah, I've got the EP and already a debut album out. But now I've released 2 singles from the upcoming album, which will be released next year. Another third single from that album will be released. We're looking at October, which is a little bit of a long wait between April and October. But I think that'll be nice because I probably have another 2 or 3 songs I'd like to get down and, really finish off this album. But it's 80% written, done. So I'll just keep plugging along with it. And I might even put a nice 90s cover song on there as well. I've been looking at a song. I like a cover song amongst all the originals. I think it's cool. It's kind of a chance to have a little play with something that's not yours. So yeah, it's been really fun. It's been, as I said, I've been going back through the last decade and writing all about my 20s and all of those experiences, the heartbreaks, really digging back in there. And then I've also now, from a mum perspective, got all these really lovely country songs that I love to write for my daughter, or, really family orientated country songs that I think will be really sweet on the record as well.
Nice, nice. That's really cool. How long have you kind of been working on the album, just in general terms? Not, yeah.
Yeah, in general terms, this time last year, or even a little
Mhm.
bit earlier, I think I wrote the first song. And they've kind of just really slowly trickled in as well. I've had big gaps between writing good songs, but my mind is always in songwriter mode, always.
Mhm.
A movie, something in the sky that I see, a thought that crosses my mind, a conversation that I have when I'm making my coffee, like I think about lyrics, I think about anything that could turn into a song. So I'm always in that mode. My brain is a songwriter brain.
For sure, for sure. So one thing I always kind of like to talk about, especially when it comes to like songwriting, is when you kind of made that switch in your mind of, okay, I'm going to start writing for this album. Um, did you find yourself to just still like kind of write songs regardless if you thought it was going to go on the project or not? Or did you find yourself more gearing towards, okay, I'm going to only write if I know this is something that could sit on this project?
Yeah, it's hard. I try not to get into that brain much.
Hmm.
I think it's very natural for us to go, oh, this could be great. This could be great for the album. But I think trying to separate and just go, let's just create. Because
Hmm.
I feel like that's when you create some really
Yeah.
soulful, that's when you get the gold because you're not panning for it. You're just letting it come out.
Hmm.
So yeah, I get stuck in that mindset, but I'm working on it. I do now that I'm at the end of the album writing process.
Yeah.
The only thing I look at is, oh, I've already got like 3 or 4 songs similar to this on the album. So I'm going to do something different from that.
Yeah.
So, I just don't want to be same all the way through. So many songwriters, I think like 80-90% of songwriters, especially in country, they love to co-write. They're co-writing all
Hmm.
the time. Rarely write solo. They'll get their ideas down, they'll get a feel down, whatever on their own, but then they'll take it to their co-writing sessions. I don't do that. I'm a solo writer mostly. I'm very open to co-writing, and I've got some friends that I'll probably co-write with soon. But I don't really, I've always just loved solo writing. And so it's kind of my thing now. But the trap and the thing you can fall into is, everything's starting to sound the same. And I've heard that recently. There are not many solo writers, but there are a couple that I've heard. And I just think, oh, they're starting to sound a little
Yeah.
bit similar. And that's the trap that I just don't want to get into. I want to make sure I still have that versatility.
Yeah.
And I still write, with different elements of country, not just all pop country or all traditional country. I want to make sure that that versatility muscle is always flexed.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And that's almost where the co-writes come into play because, especially if you're open to like just doing I don't or just doing kind of like random co-writes with random people, not necessarily people that you know or you're comfortable with, because I feel like that's where like the creative friction almost really comes into play because it's like you don't know what this person is or about or who they're influenced by, but if you're influenced by Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, but they're influenced by Clint Black and uh somebody else, like I don't know, I couldn't even think of another name, but you get what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
and like that's where that creative freedom kind of comes into play, which is what makes for really cool, like innovative songs and authentic songs.
That is a really cool idea. I've never actually thought about that. But then we have a few retreats over here. So
Mm.
I imagine going into that retreat, you might not know anyone. Same sort of situation. You're going in, don't know them from a bar of soap, but you're going to sit down and write. And but when you're friends, I think when I go to co-write with my friends, we kind of get caught up chatting too much or not. Yeah, it just sometimes doesn't, depending on the relationship. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That kind of runs into an interesting situation where it could become the song almost becomes like a I don't want to say an inside joke, but like where it only makes sense to you and your friend. Like if you've talked on a regular basis and you start writing a song about, hey, you remember when Peter did this, and then nobody else knows why Peter would drink a gallon of syrup or like whatever it was.
Something
So
random. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I can see where that would come from. And
yeah.
yeah, as I said, it depends on the dynamic, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And then you also did just release a music video for Can't Fake That. I saw that video. I think it was just on my YouTube channel because after we had you on in November, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and follow everybody on YouTube, and it
Mm.
popped up, and so I was like, I knew you were coming on, so I started watching it. It's a great music video. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. That's been such a big thing, this release. It's only my second music video, so I never really knew what to expect, but it did really well. I looked at the YouTube thing one day. I never go on YouTube, actually, to be honest.
Mhm.
I prefer like other platforms, but I just looked at it one day and it was up to like 24,000 views
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
I looked at it
Wow.
about 18,000 and then a few days later it was 24,000 and I was like, "Oh my God, this is insane." And I looked at a few other people sort of at the same stage in their career thinking this might be normal.
Mhm.
And it's actually that's a really high view. And then it had been added to some playlists, the music video, and I read the comments and I was like, oh, maybe don't read the comments because I'm
Mm.
very sensitive. And then I always think, YouTube comments aren't the nicest
Oh,
sometimes. So there's bound to be a couple in there, but they're all so lovely, that lovely that, if I have a bad day now, I'm just going to jump over to that video and read the comments because that will make me feel better. So yeah, that's just blown my mind. Really encouraging.
nice, nice. Yeah, it was a really so I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff we've done. I've started doing music video critiques, just
Oh,
kind of
cool.
like watching music video because I studied film in college and I did short films and stuff for a lot of years. So I was just like trying to think of different pieces of YouTube comment or content to create. And I was like, well, I could watch like independent music videos and kind of give some feedback on things that I
Yeah.
think they did right versus some things I would change, just like different stuff like that. And I launched it as like an idea of, okay, I'm going to do it that way for my friends. But then when I really get comfortable doing it, I kind of wanted to create a character of a staunch or music video critic, where I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm a purist, and just like create this really almost English sense of humor where I'm very dry and direct. But
Yeah.
I was like, no, I kind of like this idea of just doing independent musicians and letting it be what it is and giving useful feedback and not just being critical for the sake of being critical, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
So,
that background in it as well. That's super helpful. And artists need to know as well, because we're always looking at what to do for our next
mhm.
music video. We can take that and kind of implement that into the next one.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. But I did love the music video. It was absolutely amazing. I don't, how did that kind of come into play? Was that like your idea and then you just had like a friend or somebody film it, or how did that kind of come into play?
Thanks. Yeah. So there is a really good film clip director, I guess you could call him,
Mm,
videographer, down in Sydney, and he's won Golden Guitars
mm,
for his. He's just amazing. So I got to work with him. His name's Jay Sini. And we met halfway because it's about 5 hours to Tamworth from here, and he's about 5 hours as well. So we kind of came halfway, and it would have been beautiful to film it here on our farm, but I called one of my friends, one of my very best friends. She's the godmother of my daughter, Catherine. I said to her, "Can we come out to your place? She's got beautiful horses." I said, "Can we just film a clip here and have some fun? I want you to be in it. I want your daughter to be in it." So her daughter Fallon joined us as well. It's about celebrating women of the land, and
mm.
she comes to mind when I think about, you know, inspiring women of the land. So yeah, she was stoked for that, and she got the horses ready, and we just rode around. She said, "What do you want to do for it? Do you have like a storyline or something we need to do?" And I said, "Let's just have fun. This song is about infusing joy into our lifestyle and celebrating it. Let's just ride around and have fun." And so I got there and she said, "I have this vintage couch. It's beautiful. I'm going to put the cowhide rug underneath it, or maybe drape it over the couch, and we can sit it in the middle of the paddock." And there was this gorgeous paddock, really nice grass, perfect color against the sky.
Yeah.
And it all kind of fell into place. So I did a lot of it there. And then we were just kind of riding around, and it worked out perfectly. I think sometimes you can over plan it. I'm not sure
Mhm.
what your take on this, but yeah, you can kind of over plan the details so much that you kind of get lost and it just doesn't work out. Whereas depending on the song too, very much
Mm.
depending on the song, but this was the kind of one we could just kind of go with the flow. So it worked out well.
Oh yeah, for sure. You definitely fall into the trap of over planning or getting so um stuck to like your vision that when you get into the actual like production of it, you start ignoring things like when you're planning it, you don't think of like, oh, this is going to look good. This may not look good with the, there's just certain things you don't plan for. And then once you get in the field, it's like, oh, this shot needs to change. But sometimes you get just so stuck in your idea that you just try and make it work at any way. And it's like, that's not always the best way to go. I like having a rough idea, but then just kind of going with it once I get in. So,
Some change, I guess, especially if you're working with nature as well, because it has such a tendency to change, and
mhm,
the light could move,
mhm.
clouds could, anything could happen. So yeah, it is good just to be flexible in that way.
Oh yeah, and especially when you bring animals into the mix, if that horse doesn't want to move, he ain't gonna move. There's nothing you can do about it. So,
Especially with drones around. So the horses we rode had never been around a drone before, and he
mhm.
was shooting the drone. And I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen here? But it was great. They were so well behaved.
Nice, awesome, awesome. So, the music video's out, the new single's out, and you're building towards the full project release, which will be next year, winter or January, early next year. Or are you thinking? Have you not kind of got that far yet?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be around mid this time next year.
Okay.
Um, just to give myself plenty of time to finish it off. I've had a few projects where the deadline was approaching and we were rushing, and I'd kind of
Yeah.
stress myself. And it's never a nice feeling. I really want to go into all of my releases just super relaxed, super ready for it.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Fair enough. It's one of
just
those. What's that? Oh,
sorry,
it's
I've got. Oh, hang on, I've lost you for a second.
no, we're good. You got me?
Oh, got you. I've just got to make you bigger.
Okay,
Sorry.
gotcha. I was like, oh no, what's going on? But
The other day, I don't know why, but my Adobe thing comes up to reinstall or update.
mhm.
It takes over my screen.
Oh no, that's not good.
But it doesn't affect recording, so I kind of just answer the question and then fix it. Anyway, all
Yeah.
good.
It's all good. You know, I've had so many computer problems at work. Like today I was trying to, so I work for a TV station. I don't know if we talked about this last time, but I do like TV commercials and stuff like that is what I do. And I was working on a project today and my computer crashed on me 3 times throughout the like editing of this project. And the first time I was like done with it and my computer crashed and I had to start over from scratch because it wiped everything out. And I'm like, okay, we're fine. And then as I was like in the process of rebuilding it, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna just kind of I'm gonna be relentless about saving this thing and making sure that it doesn't happen again. And it crashed again. And I'm like, okay,
Gosh.
okay. Then a third time, it crashed as I was exporting again. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going home. I'm done. I've already spent like
I'm
this
done with
project should have taken me 2.5 hours, and I'm on hour 5 at this point. And it's like, I'm done. I'm not doing this.
them.
So, yeah, it's it was a whole thing. And then I came home and I got more accomplished in 20 minutes working on my home computer than I did all day working at work. And I was like, hey, I actually got something accomplished today, guys.
It's so draining technology, isn't it, when it's not working for you?
Oh yeah.
Just kind of takes everything out of you.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you kind of looking at now? Obviously, you've got the full project you're working on, but are you playing shows pretty consistently right now, or where are you kind of at?
Yeah, so that's just changed a little bit for me in the last couple of years because I spent all of my 20s as well just doing pub, club,
Mhm.
cover gigs at the bar, and on my own solo. And it drained me and kind of disencouraged me. I just felt like they were just watching the football instead and not really caring about the person singing in the corner. Not all the time, but I kind of went through that as well. So when I moved home, that was another thing. I had a really good agency booking quite good gigs for me, but I kind of had to find that place where I stopped booking so many cover gigs and stepped into being Katie Brooke.
Mhm.
And it's a hard jump. It's not like you're just going to jump from doing cover gigs and then, oh, all of a sudden now I'm selling 50 plus tickets because people want to come and see my original shows.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really gradual shift. Um, but we've got a lot of country music festivals starting up here and we've got a few really good bigger ones.
Yeah.
So hopefully I can, just keep applying for these country music festivals and do a good handful of those every year. And, eventually I can sort of step on out of that cover gig bar scene that just doesn't do justice to someone who wants to be an originals artist. It's really good practice and it's a really good place to go and play your new songs without too much hassle. No one's really paying too much attention sometimes. So that's what I do. I've got one tomorrow night actually, and I'll just go,
Nice.
out and test out a few new songs. And it's good money, it's good cash. So that's always nice. But we've also just started, I've always wanted a band. I've played band gigs, but I usually have to get guys from Sydney or
Mm.
Newcastle. It's a long way. And, we'd only just play together for a festival and then that'd be it. So I always thought, gee, I'd love the idea of a permanent band. But up here on the North Coast, there aren't as many country musicians. Thankfully, country's having such a moment at the moment that people actually want to play with a country artist. So I've found a drummer, a bass player, a lead guitarist, all locally, and we've been getting together every fortnight to rehearse, which has been so much fun. And we booked our first band gig for September. It's a Byron
Nice.
Bay little festival coming up. So
Mm.
yeah, I'll post some more details as that comes up. Still booking solo gigs as well, but yeah, hopefully we can start getting into that field of band gigs
Nice.
and yeah, more festivals. It's pretty tough here in Australia. You kind of, as an artist, you need to know the right people to get a run at these festivals. So I
Yeah.
think it just takes a couple of years to start getting in there. But I'm doing Tamworth and yeah, a few other ones, so it's good.
Nice. my dream is to come over for Tamworth because that's in January, right? Is that when Tamworth is, or am I thinking of the is it Gimpy or whatever it is?
Yeah, so Tamworth and Gympie are like the two biggest ones. Gympie's
Mhm.
coming up in August, and
Oh,
Tamworth's always in.
gotcha.
So
Yeah,
yeah, it's a
I,
hot.
nice. I'm always looking for the not not that I have to look for the reason to come to Australia, but that would be like the thing if I was able to come in and do like podcasts at a festival. Like I do it here in the States all the time, and I've been invited a couple times over to the UK. And just for me right now, the issue is work and trying to get my passport figured out. So yeah,
Yeah, there's always those little technical things when you're wanting to go overseas, that's for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, because it's like they'll ask me and it'll be like 4 weeks before the festival and it's like, oh, I gotta go get my passport. And then I realized like, oh crap, it's gonna take like 12 weeks to get the passport. And then it's like, okay, well, I can't do the festival. And then I stop worrying about the passport and then it happens again. So it's just kind of like, you know what, this summer I just need to go get my passport. So when it pops up, I can go. And it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and it's always good for like months ahead to just start looking at flights because you might snag something really cheap,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you can get lucky because it's expensive as well.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, it's just the organization when you're going overseas. It's just so much to
Oh
think
yeah.
about.
Oh yeah. And for me, it's like it's just me. Like prior before I moved to Texas, I had my buddy Jeff who would come with me on a lot of trips. But since I moved to Texas, he's had a kid, so it's just kind of like his life's changed over the last like 7, 8 years. So it's like I can't go to him and say, hey, you want to go spend 2 weeks in Australia and leave your wife and kid here and just go? Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's just one of those things where we're at two different points in our lives, and it's like I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. If I want to go to Sydney, I'm going to go to Sydney. Like it don't matter. But yeah,
freedom.
yeah.
That's it.
So, um, so how? What's that?
Come over in January, you'll love it.
Oh yeah, it's everybody tells me like November, December is like the best time to come over. Is that fair?
That's Yeah, it gets because Tamworth is so exhaustingly hot
Yeah,
end of January. It's just not fun in that regards, but it's great otherwise.
fair. But yeah, like Tamworth coming over for the music festival at the end of January would be the move for me, and then it would just kind of filter into everything else that I got going on. So it's like, okay, Tamworth, and we're going here, then we're going there, and then we're going here. So yeah,
You can fill up the schedule as much as you want, really.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So outside of music, what have you been doing recently? Obviously, you live on is it a farm or is it more of a ranch?
Yeah, well, I guess we don't use the term ranch here as much, but I think it's the same thing. It's about
Mm.
600 acres, our family
Yeah.
farm. And then we're on a little 5 acre block in the corner of it, which is really nice because I can experience running the farm with my family, but I also don't have all of the responsibility. So it's nice. But we still have three Highland steers, like the ones with the horns. They're really
Hmm.
fluffy, those ones. And we kind of have a bit of a homestead thing set up here. I really love growing my own food. I love
Yeah.
growing my own herbs and, making my own tea, knowing that I can kind of look after my family and give them fresh homegrown
Hmm.
stuff. We have hens, so we get our eggs right outside the back door. And yeah, on the farm, sometimes we'll get some meat from my family, if they're killing a cow or something, or get some beef that'll last us a little while.
Yeah.
So I was watching my mum over at her place this morning. She was canning pickles, making her own like pickles and canning it. And I just thought, wow, this is so great. It's just such a great, slow way of living
Hmm.
and something fantastic to hand down to your kids. And, if anything ever happens, a bit like the pandemic or
Hmm.
whatever may happen, we never know. It's really nice to be just that little bit self-sufficient. Just know that you can you've got a bit of a stock up of food and you can always take care of yourself.
Yeah, 100%. That's always been my dream because on my mother's side, her cousins and stuff were all farmers, and they like some of them were like pig farmers, some of them did cattle. It just kind of depended on what they were all about, and it was like Man, that's really cool. Like just kind of having being in that environment where you're kind of self-sufficient almost as much as you can be, but when you're
Yeah.
sitting on 600 acres, you could probably be about as self-sufficient as you want to be. So,
And there are so many little ins and outs. Like you can do like your food canning, or you can do
mhm.
your gardening, or you can raise animals. There are so many ins and outs of it. So you just choose, a couple of things and learn about those. And then in 10 years, you can choose the next things. And yeah, stuff like even learning how to crack whips. Like my dad's a stock whip maker,
Oh,
or like
nice.
rope, stuff like that, skills that kind of aren't as popular anymore. I think it's so great for our brain and just to learn all these different skills.
Oh, 100% agreed. 100% agreed. So, outside all of that, if anybody wants to check out your music or any of that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, Instagram is my main social media hangout. I'm always on Instagram, Katie Brooke Music there. I've got a Facebook page and a TikTok and all the things, a threads even. But yes, it's all on Spotify. It's on every streaming platform under Katie Brooke. You'll find it. And then, of course, YouTube as well. And my website is katiebrookemusic.com.
Awesome. What's been your favorite social media recently?
I do love using threads. I kind of use it like a little diary entry. I just get on there and kind of speak my mind. And if I've got a couple of little poems that I've been writing or something quirky that I'll think about, I just pop on there. And it's something that you probably wouldn't put on Instagram. But I
Yeah.
love Instagram as well. And I love reels and all of that. TikTok's awful. It's so behind the ball. Like it's just not advanced compared to making reels on Instagram and all that.
Hmm.
So I've only just recently got on there and I'm learning about it, but I'm not loving TikTok.
Fair.
What
Very fair.
do you love it?
Um, so right now, my big thing has been like as far as like social media stuff, it's been Instagram. That's just kind of where I like to be. Um, but I've really been exploring this program called Substack.
Right. I
It,
have heard
it
that.
yeah, it's basically like um it's you because you brought up writing. Substack may be something that you really look into because it's kind of like a blog posting, but it works like so imagine like a blog post, but in a
Yeah,
social media kind of element.
I like that. Yeah. That's
So
really cool.
I've been really getting into that, especially as I'm creating more content. It's like a different way for me to kind of promote my content. The music video critiques, this podcast will probably get like a Substack page. And so it's definitely something to check out, especially with the music as a musician. I don't see a whole lot of musicians on there.
Yes, that'd be great. And it's all about building different communities. I
Mhm.
notice on each platform, I've got my little communities now. So it's nice. You kind of do have to spread your posting out.
Mhm.
At one stage, I was just like, nope, I'm just doing Instagram, but that has changed. And
Yeah.
I think you have to utilize it and have your boundaries and not overuse it.
Oh
That's
yeah.
what I try. So,
The one thing that I hate about social media is that for you to gain any kind of traction is you have to be consistent. And since I'm not doing this like full time where it's like I wake up at 8 and this is all I mean, yes, it's all I think about, but from like 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, I can't do anything about it because I've got another job I gotta go do. So it's like from 9 to 5, I could sit there and think about it, but I can't take a photo of, oh, this is a really cool thing and go put it up on Instagram, you know?
it's something, content is surprisingly just so time consuming.
Mhm.
I enjoy it. I enjoy creating. I'm going to do content today because I've run out. So I'll go out and take a bunch of photos and videos and put some things together this
Nice.
afternoon. But yeah, I kind of have to leave one whole afternoon a week free just to
Hmm.
do, because I prefer to do it all at once, not
Yeah.
just kind of, oh, I'll take a photo today here
Yep.
and there. Now that I'm so busy with music and mum life and homestead life and all the things, yeah, I kind of just have to get it all done at once.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at is on Saturdays are usually kind of my days. It's maybe sometimes Sundays because, but mostly either Saturdays or Sundays, I'll sit down and I'll just run through like 7 video, like it's more of my bigger projects. Like I'll do like the bigger production videos, and then like the smaller stuff I'll just kind of do throughout the week because I don't like to kind of think that in depth. I just want to get the bigger projects done, and then I'll kind of worry about like the verticals and the stuff for Instagram. And if I can time it out ahead of time, that's great. If not, I'll get it up when I get it up, you know.
That's the thing. So it's nice to be able to do that in your own time, but there is always this pressure clock, isn't there? I feel like, oh, I haven't posted on Instagram for a couple of days. After
Yeah.
2 or 3 days, start getting a bit antsy. Like I really need to get some content up. I don't like living like that, but it kind of is the way it is.
Yeah. When you kind of get yourself into that position where it's been a few days, do you find, and we've completely gone off the rails at this point, but this is fine. This is a great part of the conversation. When you kind of get yourself into that position where you haven't posted in a few days, and that anxiousness is kind of getting to you, where it's like, oh, I got to post something. I got to post something. Do you find that you're just posting stuff for the sake of posting things, or do you still try and find some intrinsic value that you're giving out when you post it?
Yeah, I used to. When I started on Instagram, I used to go, let's just get something up. So I'll dig right back through my photo albums. I'll really, try and drag something out of my brain. What could I use? But these days, I'm a little bit more like, no, it has to be, I've got to feel this post. I've got to really believe in it. And a bit like my music has changed as well. Like, it's all got to mean something. It can't just be like, here, throwing it out there. But I do love it if I've just got like a festival announcement or something really easy, podcast interview announcement or something that I can just chuck on the grid that's content and I don't have to think about it too much. It's
Yeah.
always so nice.
Yeah.
Free content.
Yeah, for sure. Have you thought about the, and this is something that I'm telling a lot of people to kind of look at, is you mentioned that you're doing a lot of like homesteading stuff. Have you thought about creating content in those moments of like just maybe not giving away all your entire personal life, but like just things that you're really passionate outside of the music industry, that just like, if I don't know, if you're helping your mother can pickles or something, like whatever it is, just kind of taking a quick photo and hanging out with mom tonight, or like whatever it is. I think listeners really engage with that because it's not just music, or not just pictures of her getting ready to go to a show or whatever it is. There's a like a um I can't think of the word I want to use. There's a connection that they can
Yeah,
make.
yeah, definitely like a personal connection. Absolutely. I must say, I always have good intentions, but in those moments too, I'm always so far removed from my phone and my camera. I do like to get right in that moment. But I did a few weeks ago, I did some cattle work with my brother and my dad. And I made sure that, in the yards before we started, I was taking some little snippets and just to show people like I am a country girl who sings country music. I don't just sit in a high-rise building writing country songs. I actually live this life. Um, so I love to, show people that I really live and breathe what I sing about.
Mhm.
And yeah, I started a little reel sort of series. It's
Yeah.
called Something You May Not Know About Me series. And same sort of thing I just went through because I was a personal trainer for like 14 years. I was in
Mm.
the fitness industry and it was a massive part of my life. So things like that maybe my music fans don't know about. That my dad makes stock whips for a living, like such a niche, weird little thing to do well, but he does.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a little series, and I'm always thinking of things that I can add to that. And I'll probably put something about like the homesteading and
Mm.
all that kind
That's really cool. And no, that I'm glad that have already kind of started exploring that, because I think that's something that's just kind of overlooked, because it's like, okay, trying to keep things separate and compartmentalized and all that stuff. And it's like the thing you're ignoring is the thing that people are going to gravitate to the most, you know? So,
they do. I do too. I gravitate towards those really real posts.
mhm.
You can, when something's kind of been created to try and drag people in. I don't know, I've lost my words here, but you can tell when something's really authentically created.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That authenticity is key. It is 100% key. So, Um, but I don't want to keep you here too much longer because I know you got a show tomorrow. Where's your show at tomorrow?
In Lismore. So there's a little
Okay.
town called Lismore, not far from here, and I'm playing there really regularly. I play there every month, so it'll be
Nice.
good.
Is that gig more, is that more of like the cover stuff, or are you able to throw in some like originals and whatnot?
It's pretty cool. They don't care what I play, so it's a 2 hour gig, and I've been playing half half or almost three quarters originals now, I think, which has been really really nice.
Nice. That's cool. That's really cool. But I want to thank you so much. If you want to share your socials again really quick for everyone, and we will wrap this up.
Yeah, Katie Brooke Music across all streaming platforms. You'll find me, and thank you so much for having me all the way across the ocean.
Yeah, absolutely. We will do this again, hopefully at Tamworth next year. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed on that one. So,
Be looking out for you.
yeah, hopefully, like, because it's always a financial thing, isn't it? It's like you have the best intentions, and then it's like, oh, that's going to cost me like 5 grand. I don't even got 5 grand. So,
That's a part with for sure.
yeah, but really appreciate you. I'm glad that we were able to sit down and do this, and I look forward to doing it again. And once again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you all later.